Zenless Zone Zero is a game that I really enjoy, which unfortunately means that my opinion goes against the massive grain of its coverage online. This is my disclaimer that this video wasn't made with the intent or purpose to tear down other people for having an opinion. However, I just wanted to share my own personal input regarding the discourse towards this game. I've read many points from people saying things such as the difficulty in the game is non-existent, that the holo exploration is too prominent and boring, the characters don't look like 5 stars, and many other things. Some even suggesting that there are parts of the game that feel missing. And to many of these arguments, I can see where people are coming from, but I've personally had differing experiences towards these thoughts. Now, my background in the gacha sphere probably differs from most, and I feel that it is important to disclose this so that there's full context from where I am coming from. I have played many gacha games, but while I've played a numerous amount, I've always had a tendency to drop them due to substantial aspects varying from game to game. For Genshin Impact, I got so lost in the story in between updates, it ultimately became too fantasy-like for my understanding, requiring external help to be knowledgeable, and overall, too time-consuming for me to enjoy. Plus Paimon. For Honkai Star Rail, I absolutely loved the game, playing it way longer than I've given Genshin Impact within the span of a few months, but ultimately lost interest due to the lessened need of interactivity because of autoplay, alongside the fact it was kind of difficult to remember important things due to a story being formed around many people from very distinct worlds. I really loved Penacony though. For Wuthering Waves, I really enjoyed satisfying combat with the potential of excelling in battles that far exceeded my limitations. But what made me lose interest was having to travel across an open world with characters that I barely have a connection with. We could also argue that I probably just struggled to remember important things with WoW too. I'm seeing a consistent train of me struggling to remember things in gacha games. Whether if it was the confusing storylines, lack of connection with the characters, prominent appeal of autoplay, or just open world exploration, I just couldn't seem to find a gacha game that just sticks. At least that was until I got to play Zenless Zone Zero's second closed beta test. This game showed me a ton of personality through its choice in manga storytelling, crispy animations, charismatic crew members, and its energetic combat. And while I did hold the same gripes everyone had of the holo exploration at first, only wanting to fight non-stop, I ended up enjoying the way they convey both story and dialogue through a stylized environment. This approach was unlike anything that I've seen and had me hooked within the first week. But learning that I'd lose all my progress, having to start over from Zenless Zone Zero, see what I did there? I ultimately believed that I wouldn't be returning on release. And now we're here to current day. Enter not level 31. Within 5 days. I may just be prone to the honeymoon phase, but as it currently stands, I think this is the gacha game I can keep up with. So imagine me absolutely loving this game alongside my friends when we start seeing all the discourse surrounding this game that we're easily pouring hours into. Yeah, pretty depressing. So with that in mind, that should give you the view I have with my gacha experience. Let me start breaking down some of the arguments that I've seen. Zenless Zone Zero lacks substance in its combat. I think you're right. If the humanoid enemy is weak to fire, you bring a fire character. If the robot enemy is weak to lightning, you bring the lightning character. I would have to be Delulu to completely ignore how easy this game is. You hit the enemy with basic attacks. If you have your EX skill, use it. Use your assist or dodge the enemy's attacks depending on the circumstances. Use your ultimate, wipe out, move on to the next commission. At its basis, this is all you have to worry about. There are other systems in play, such as the days meter and characters having different combos and elements, but fundamentally doesn't change the general gameplay. I've personally never expected ZZZ to have a comprehensive combo list that was going to enable me to pop off moves like the universally acclaimed world-splitting Vergil combo, but I guess I wasn't in the loop for that. I've heard that the ideas stem directly from Hoyoverse themselves, and I don't necessarily have the proof confirming nor denying it, but my concern lies from if anyone even did the actual proper research to see if the combat was as intuitively complex as they imagined. It's flashy, but the skill needed to play this game is so unimaginably easy, you could probably get elders living inside of retirement homes taking down Dead End Butcher with little struggle. But regardless, the depth of gameplay is pretty shallow. But the thing is, that doesn't make it bad. This game made me realize how much of a casual experience I really want. When something is simple and clear with little effort, I find myself enjoying the ride of the adventure way more than something overtly complex. This game surely doesn't mean to challenge you mechanically, but it does plan to challenge you through proper team composition. Your units make the most out of your team, and the game makes that abundantly more important than what you can achieve inside a battle. And to me, I find it way more enjoyable mixing around my roster to experiment infinitely more fun than brute forcing through just pure execution. Sure, it does make me feel good when I know I'm beating bosses 20 levels above me, but I'm not walking 30 minutes across an open world to do it. I'm a very linear, objective-based person, so minimal distractions is meaningful to me, and ZZZ provides that. I don't have to think much about the combat nor deeply research into each individual character to use them properly. Maybe a light skim can tell me more, but that's all I really want. But if there is something I'd like there to be implemented, it was the manual combo feature where you controlled when you did your chained attacks. It was inside of the beta test I played and removed on full release. Please tell me somebody else cared about this. So, to summarize, if you're looking for a low skill floor action game where you can play any character with little effort, I'd suggest ZZZ. And if you don't, it's competitor Wuthering Waves. Problem solved. You're welcome for that. There are parts of the game that feel missing. My main problem with this idea is the wording, honestly. The main thought behind this is the fact the game lacks other systems from other action games, such as jumping or juggling, which is portrayed as a necessary thing. In reality, it's not, and this might be a hot take, but I think adding something like a jump button to this game would mean having to change many systems within the combat. Other gacha, most notably Honkai Impact 3rd, had to create a whole separate storyline implemented the jump button, among many other features and different map design. Now, I'm not saying that they have to remake the game to add a jump button, but it would require adding jumping attacks for fluidity for all characters, changing their combos, creating reasons to jump whether it's by map design or dodging specific attacks, and probably more that's not immediately hitting the top of my skull. And I can argue that juggling is already in the game, considering the fact that there are chained attacks and assists that simulates it without taking you off the main plane you're fighting on. I think that saying that elements of the game feel missing just because they're not present makes it as if the game is unplayable without it, which is far from the truth. For an example, I would agree with this statement if, let's say, Zenless Zone Zero never had a dodge button. That is a necessary aspect that would trivialize its gameplay so much it would literally be unplayable. To clarify, I'm not against them adding systems like this, not at all, but slightly adjusting there are parts of this game that feel missing to these additional features could support the gameplay, or something along those lines, is a more accurate representation of what's actually being conveyed. It's very popular in many different action games like Devil May Cry or Ninja Gaiden if anyone still remembers that. But just because it lacks it doesn't mean that it's missing. In summary, jump attacks and juggling is good, but for what the game already has, it's very much playable as it is, and would just be a cherry on top of the current gameplay. Although it does add more complexity into what I consider a very casual gacha game. The hollow exploration is boring. I see where you're coming from, and I completely think your point is valid. I don't have any reason to tear this apart because you're only really with it or not. Me personally, I enjoy it with a capital E. The main people that have a problem with this is the fact that it breaks up the gameplay into really drawn out, unstimulating experiences. People just want to fight, and once again, I get that. But I've personally enjoyed it as they used it to display the environments through not only the story, but dialogue, especially inside of some of the side commissions. In the commissions, they vary in different approaches. Sometimes you'll be solving puzzles. Maybe they'll do some really funny things such as having you play Plants vs. Zombies Bang Boo style, Bomberman, or just in general, create experiences you probably wouldn't normally have in other gachas. Some of them even had me thinking in ways that took me longer than some of the more complex puzzles in other gacha games. It's through this system that creates such a stark difference in how gacha games portray their stories, especially in a creative manner that fits the world they live in. It's certainly not more visually appealing than having a true cutscene or an actual map befitting the location, but it's dependent more on the person's imagination regarding the layouts of the area, which I really like. There was also an announcement with Hoyoverse saying that they listened to the player suggestions about the hollow exploration, but all they really changed was adding a speed up button, which most people probably didn't notice because of how minimal it fixes what they were actually upset by. It's not completely met with hatred, as some people really enjoy it in the roguelike mode, Hollow Zero. Honestly, with the right adjustments, I think that it could serve people better, but at the same time, I enjoy it for what it is, and I imagine I can't be one of the only ones. Because if I am, that is absolutely horrible and they need to change it now. In summary, I get what people are saying, and it really does come down to personal preference. You will be spending more time on the TV board than fighting, so if that's not what you're into, then please don't pressure yourself to interact with the game. But I think that if you give it some time to let it balance itself out, you could end up enjoying it as well. The S agents don't look like 5 stars. This one, I think, is genuinely the funniest one that I've read and honestly had me scratching my head of what makes an S agent look like a 5-star. Is it based off bright colors? Is it based on having extremely enigmatic characteristics? Do they have to look edgy? Do they have to look out of place? Is it the way they're dressed? I don't really know how to describe what makes an S agent look like a 5-star. So if anyone has a clue or can break it down for me to understand, please let me know. I don't think I've paid attention personally to the looks of 5-star characters as much as other people, but rather their gameplay, which this game does take a focus on. I've heard people were underwhelmed regarding Zhu Yuan, who just looks like a very good-looking policewoman, but to others, it may just be a boring cop. My counter-argument to this is the fact that in reality, Zenless Zone Zero's world is quote-unquote kind of normal. Other than the fact that there are walking animal people and creatures living in the hollows, life for people still is pretty normal. They work real-life regular jobs, such as police work. There are still office jobs, shops, and other lines of work that deals with the horrors in the hollows you explore. While another person could say that Zhu Yuan is just a generic character, I see it as one of the most fitting choices they could have for an S agent. It's very realistic for the world that they live in, and I feel that there is a disconnect due to how other 5 stars are portrayed within other games. And I feel like if we're willingly ignoring that fact, it comes more so off as ignorant rather than insightful. Zenless is so down to earth than most gacha games, I genuinely believe that it would be hard for them to implement crazier looking characters without fully breaking the immersion. I could be wrong about this, so feel free to debate that if you need to. In summary, I don't know what makes an S agent look like a 5-star. However, I do believe that choosing a policewoman working within the Hollow Investigation Squad is one of the best choices they can make as an S agent currently. So, what can we take from all this? In reality, ZZZ is just a really casual gacha game. It's not a game that focuses on extreme combat fidelity, but focuses on world building through many of the characters, NPCs, dialogue, and hollow exploration system. For me personally, as it currently stands, is exactly what I believe I can stick with for a long time. There's a ton of more reasons why I am attached to this game, but I'm not going to spend much time explaining all of that here. I may do that for a separate video, in fact. Zenless Zone Zero will not challenge you mechanically, nor does it aim to do so, but it does expect you to have a good team composition in place of the low skill environment. If you desire a more linear, character-focused experience with a low skill floor, go play ZZZ. If you desire an in-depth battle system with a much higher skill ceiling with open world exploration, I'd suggest sticking with Wuthering Waves. They both have their own intended audiences, so in the end, you're really with one or the other, with the rare case of possibly enjoying both. I believe it's understandable for not everyone to like ZZZ as much as I, but the current present negative views towards ZZZ admittedly had me frustrated as someone who does enjoy the game. It's not perfect in any way, shape, or form, but it is something that fits the exact bill I've been waiting for inside of my wallet. I meant that figuratively and not that I'm going to spend money on the game, just so that we're clear. But my main takeaway from this is that just because ZZZ values different aspects from its competitor Wuthering Waves and other action games within the same genre, it doesn't make it any less of an experience for those who truly enjoy it. But I'm just another voice in the wind and just wanted to convey my own thoughts regarding ZZZ. Feel free to let me know how you guys feel about it, because I think it's important to see different perspectives regarding this. Other than that, I'm going to be playing some more ZZZ but no sleep. You are now leaving Psyker's world. See you on your next visit.